This is a friendship that'll never ever end.
Greetings and welcome to Unveiling Reality. How's everybody doing this evening? Hope you're all living well. Let's see. Thank you to all the reoccurring YouTube members. Scrolling at the bottom of the screen, you guys help keep the channel going. I appreciate all the contributions and that you have prepaid your monthly super chat. I hope you will use them. But thank you guys so much for being part of the winner circle. A permanent part of it, man. It really makes a big difference. And to anybody out there that has a gifted membership, you might want to consider joining up with the winners there full time, because we have a lot of work to do and we are on our way. Say hello to the VIP. Suzanne dropping by. Drop that like. First one to like it. All right. Hopefully she's awake for the show. We hope you are. And I thanked her very well for that. And Wolfram, thank you for dropping these links. He wipes his paws, lips in, and howls. And he is here. And there's Shelly over there talking to everybody out on X watching. And saying hello to everybody out there on Rumble as well. If you're on Rumble right now, go ahead and hit that follow. Hit the follow and the thumbs up for you. It gets to be too far into the show because you want to go ahead and follow us on Rumble, because you never know with YouTube how things are going to go, especially here in 2024. It is the year of action, and that's action on all sides, as we're going to learn tonight on this very special edition. This is a must-see. It's a must-see. You guys need to see what I'm going to show you tonight. You need to hear this information. Not only is it going to give you the present, but it's also going to give you a trip into the past to understand better how the deep state went from Cold War heroes to deep state villains. That's basically the premise of J. Michael Waller's book, Big Intel, which is on the list for Unrig the Game. We just started reading. We're going to start reading Vivek Ramaswamy's Woke Inc., which will give us a deep look inside how corporations are being corrupted and how they're pushing this WEF UN Agenda 30 agenda on us through the private sector. And he's going to give you all the inside baseball on that. But this guy right here is going to tell us about the Intel community in a way. When I heard it, I was like, wow, I got to show this to people. I got to show this to him. Jacob, you're going to love this stuff. Wolfram, you're going to love it. You guys are going to be in for a real treat tonight with this, because it will talk about some things I don't know that we've ever heard of or talked about before on the show. So we'll be getting some new information tonight, and then we'll take a little history lesson with Michael Waller as well. And you're going to learn some things about the past and how the deep state became so corrupt. It's going to be key information to understand and to learn in order to understand how to better make solutions for the future, right? What to avoid, how to stop this from happening again. This is all included in this episode tonight. And after that interview, we'll have an additional interview. That one runs about 40 minutes. So we'll have an additional interview with Donald Trump Jr. and Tucker Carlson, talking about what just went down, the lawfare against his father, our president, Donald J. Trump, and what that experience has been like, what they're planning on. A lot of inside baseball there, as well as to what to expect in 2024. Good stuff all the way around. You guys are going to love it. I promise you that. And no matter where you're at, whether you're on X, Rumble, or YouTube, you're going to get the same from me. We're going to try to stay on YouTube as long as we can. If there's any issues, we have to be ready to jump. So right now I'm going and grabbing the X link. And thank you for everybody who shares and hearts on X. I really do appreciate it. It's hard to be a straight up honest channel on X, man. It really is. And I'm going to show you that in a second, because I have something to kick us off with tonight. And I'm going to expose a grifter. I'm going to expose a grift map that went around today. This guy, I gotta call him out for this BS that went on, and I gotta show you guys. And you guys, because you're the smartest crowd out there, you're the most educated crowd out there now at this point. You're gonna see exactly what I'm looking at here, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, we've been down this road. But let me go ahead and get that link ready right here. All right, there we go. That's saved in the description now, and I'm going to try to make it fit here. -1, always -1. All right, there we go. Boom. And there are our emergency backup links if you're on YouTube, in case we have to jet off YouTube and go to Rumble and X exclusively. But usually these stay up. So hopefully no issues here. And I do have a paid membership to the Tucker Carlson Network, tuckercarlson.com. So I definitely have paid for the footage here. And Tucker is very cool about it. He doesn't seem to care. So as long as anybody else doesn't try to claim it as their own, it's not on YouTube. So I don't know if that's done on purpose or not. We'll find out, won't we? We'll find out. You got to be bold in this day and age. You got to be bold to stand up against them. And that's basically what people are saying, these days out there. But let me go ahead and show you right now what I'm talking about over on X. All right. Let's start with this guy, this clown right here. All right. Matt Wallace. Now, this is a grifter that, I don't know what his deal is. Like most grifters that are out there, some stuff on his page that isn't grifting is decent, and the other stuff isn't. But this whole profile seems like a grifter. This guy says he's the CEO of Titter, and Titter is the ripoff of Twitter, where I guess you can go over there and view Twitter without having to be on Twitter. I don't know what the scam is there, but he makes it look like he's a friend of Elon's, but I don't know that he is. This is him right here. I don't know what this guy's problem is. He's probably just down in the rabbit hole in the abyss. But he's got 1.8 million followers, 1.8 million followers, including people like Owen Schroyer and 70 others that I follow, which is very disappointing because you see this map right here. And see, like he's pointing out this guy who looks kind of pedophilic and nibbling on his kid's ear or doing something, right? This is a bad look. So I don't necessarily disagree with calling this out, but it's like, I don't know. It doesn't look right to me. And evidently he says, this isn't what I'm talking about, by the way, but this is something that, it looks decent, right? It looks like he's trying to do some good work here. So I always try to point out the good and the bad, but this map right here, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, the dude's full of shit. You're right. And he's a guy that'll grab like a little, he'll grab a photo and be like, what does this look like? And he'll try to get, I mean, that's a Twitter scam, right? And so gets to get interaction. And I guess if you fall for it, you fall for it. But I don't ever answer those anymore because nobody looks at it, nobody cares. And it's just really to benefit the person who's doing the slack work, right? What does this look like? What does this look like? Let your imagination run wild. Well, today, 19 hours ago, he put out this map. So this is our grifter of the week here, Matt Wallace. Save this map to your phone quickly before it's banned on the internet. That's what he says. Okay, this is how he ropes you in. So everything will make sense. When's that? So if you look down at my friends who are doing the who worked the comments here, the reader comments, you can see right here, it's already been exposed as this is the Great Awakening map. Not to be confused with the book that we just read. A lot of people have co-opted that terminology, including the QAnon crowd. So known as the QAnon map or QWeb. It's a graphics linking together hundreds of conspiracy theories to help QAnon adherents make sense of their conspiratorial worldview. Right? It's full on disinformation and should be taken as such. Right? So it went out there, 84K, right? 28 million impressions. This is how easy it is for grifters to get noticed. Meanwhile, if you're telling the truth or you're calling out the grift, you're buried. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. We need to change that. But this map right here is a literal like mat full of puke, just everything puked into one thing with a bunch of arrows going through it. I mean, the level of tism that it took to make this is over the top, but it's totally misguided. And as you see, as I will scroll into this here in a second. I have to actually take it down and then pull up an image that I took. There's no way I could like scroll in on Twitter. It just keeps going back to the same size. So here we go. Let's just share this window. Share our screen. Yeah, over there. All right, here it is. All right, so let's just grind into this a little bit. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Right? I was just going to say, soon everything will make sense. Sounds QAnon-ish, right? It does, and it is. So this is a guy right here in election season with millions of followers in the conservative and the right leaning sphere, right? Who is again doing the same old trick that I've been calling out for decades now, of trying to rope people that have parted ways from the establishment media, the establishment narrative, who've left the first veil, right? Trying to rope them in and drag them down into a rabbit hole of a discredited rabbit hole, right? Where they what they say will fall on deaf ears and only be welcome in an echo chambers where people are searching for confirmation bias, right? And look at this puke, right? So if you scroll in, right, and it's not going to get much clearer, sorry. And you can see there's the middle of it, right? So Nazi Germany, the Pentagon, OSS. Let's see if I can make this a little clearer. And it starts spreading out from there. Like I said, there's going to be truth mixed in with conspiracy grifting all over this map. And the first thing you can notice if you scroll down is the Illuminati card game right there. Illuminati card game. No, somehow the person who made this map, and it wasn't Matt Wallace by any stretch of the imagination. He's just a grifter. He grabs it and grifts it. Make sure people fall for the bullshit. Has put the Illuminati card game on there. Hilarious, right? Hilarious. Like they're trying to send a signal with the Illuminati card game. Bullshit. Someone was just trying to grift off of it, right? It's a grift. And so they talk about things like Agenda 21, Monsanto, Florida, all good stuff, right? But then they add in this chemtrails and mix it right next to geoengineering. We all know chemtrails aren't real. So you scroll down, and what do you see? Over here in the corner, it's the Anunnaki. Yeah, that's right. We're here with ancient aliens, Zachariah Stitchin, right? Here comes the bullshit train rolling. And they don't call this out as a COINTELPRO, but they should. And look at that. They got Alex Jones right there and InfoWars right above all this shit. The David Icke, they put him all in the same vein there, right? Right next to David Icke, it's a reptilian grifter, right? And it's just all over the place. Like anybody's ever gonna like read this, right? I mean, some people will, and some people will. What they'll take it, what they'll do is they'll download it or take a screenshot of it and they'll just post it in comments. See there, go learn, do your research, you know. And what they'll do is they'll end up falling for a bunch of bullshit. And that's the unfortunate problem when you have these conspiracy grifters out there getting all this attention, right? They get the push, they get the reach, they get the algorithm for some reason, right? They're mixing in truth with fiction here. Oh, look, the Mandela effect, CERN. Remember that, guys? Went through all that. It's right there. It's a real thing to them. It's real. And there's Nibiru, planet Nibiru, right? All the Mayan calendar from 2012. Good Lord, guys. Good Lord. Right? But see, you've been here with me the whole time. You've learned all these things are grifts, right? We know what's real and we know what's not. Look at they got Bill Cooper on there. Oh, Jesus, man. Holy shit. And then of course they have some stuff that makes some sense, right? They have some stuff that makes some sense. But only because it's in name only, right? It's in name only. Yeah, doesn't that make your head hurt? It's supposed to be ultimate confusion, right? So like I said, what this part's right, okay, but that part and all these other parts aren't right. So that's the grift. Like we said, there's always some truth in there, and then what they do is they take it to the next level, where that's the next level is where you get discredited. So be on alert for this guy, guys. Just wanted to let you know, wanted you to just see it because it came across. I saw it today, and I was just like, oh yeah, I remember this thing. It's a pile of puke. That's what it is. Puke and disinformation, and this guy thinks he's working for the anti-establishment. He's really just a useful idiot for the establishment. Hey, T-Rex, what's up, dude? You want to stick around tonight, dude? You want to stick around? This interview is going to be rocking the house, dude. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. I need you here. I need you here, big buddy. I need you here. All right. Good buddy. Good buddy. That's how I just said trucker term. Good buddy. 10-4, good buddy? 10-4. Check this stuff out. You're going to be like, holy crap. Holy crap. This interview is so packed with information. I can't wait to get started. How's everybody doing out there, though? I am saying hello, hello, hello. I hope a lot of people tune in for this one. I really do. So I'm kind of like walking this in a little bit. So I want to give people time to show up and understand that you're going to learn so much tonight about things that aren't often talked about. Yeah, awesome, cool. Am driving, but we'll be listening. All right. I want you to honk that horn every time you learn something new. Let me go ahead and get this next banner going. All right. So fingers crossed that we don't have to make a jump off this off here. It's about 45 minutes. I will be breaking in to add to this because I want to point out a lot of stuff in this and give you my best reaction I can. So you guys buckle in. I wish Jacob Peets was here. He needs to hear this. So I'm gonna go find him. Where's everybody else at? There's so many people that are so awesome that come to all my shows and that have been here for the education and all the deprogramming and everything else we've done. And this is one of those. This is one of those that I want the whole crowd here for. I really do. It's that important. Like, you're gonna learn so much. I was just floored by it. I'm excited about it too. It really fills in a lot of gaps. But before we do that, before we start, we got one more thing to take care of, and it's this. Talking Trash and Truths, thank you for the $10 super chat. You know what I want. Give me, please, and thank you. And you got it. All right. So did Wolfram. He says, thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Look at her go. Look at her go. If only they could be facing in opposite directions. Now they're just going down a slide together. All right. Well, thank you for the $10 super chat. That gets us off and running for the night. I appreciate the support as always. All right. I'm going to queue up this interview because I cannot wait. Now, if you guys were at Unrig the Game on Monday, then you got the first minute or so of this already. But refresher coming up. Let's get all Tucker up here. And we're ready to go. All right. Without further ado, go for it. Educate me. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. You guys hang in there. And we're gonna go see. Try it like right there. All right. Off and rolling. Tucker, take it away.
In the summer of 2020, 4 years ago, a professor at Georgetown University called Rosa Brooks headed up a group that she called the Transition Integrity Project.
All right, that's the key thing right there. The Transition Integrity Project. All right, that's the little group there. Is the volume okay for everybody? That's the little group there that most people haven't heard about. That are going to be very very critical to understand what they're doing and what they have already done. The name itself doesn't sound too threatening, does it? Wait till you find out what they do.
Heard of it? You're about to learn a lot more about it. So the goal of the Transition Integrity Project, this was before the last presidential election, of course, was to play out different outcomes from that election and see how the country would handle each one, kind of a war game, a political war game. The project was made up from representatives from a bunch of different groups, but similar groups: law professors, political strategists, retired military officers, all from the left. Now, their stated goal was to focus on 4 possible outcomes of the 2020 election: a narrow Biden win, a big Biden win, a Trump win, and a scenario with no immediate winner, basically a tie, confusion. So they spent 4 days doing this, and they played out a bunch of different scenarios. Now, you should know, if you want a flavor of what this looked like, that Donald Trump was played by Bill Kristol. Joe Biden was played by former Democrat
Bill Kristol. Bill neocon, the leader of the neocon movement, I guess at this point, the heir apparent, his father, that's Bill Kristol, Irving Kristol, was one of the founders of the neoconservative movement. So just to let you know, that's the guy supposedly playing Trump in this wargaming. So yeah, the establishment, the false left right paradigm is still in full effect. It's just not in if they're still working together, right? They're still a team, but even though they don't hold power in the GOP anymore. So like I said, they're always waiting in the background to take it back.
Democratic White House Chief of Staff John Podesta, et cetera, et cetera. Other members of the group included washed up neocon lunatic Max Boot, Michael Steele, the MSNBC regular, Jennifer Granholm, the failed governor, and David Frum, who's some sort of loud Canadian.
So yeah, check that out. Right there is your false left right paradigm. You got neocons and Democrats are sitting in there working together to war game against Trump. So that's where this group comes from.
So you can kind of get a sense of what these were like, these meetings. So here was the assessment of what they found. This is Rosa Brooks describing it. We're quoting. A landslide for Joe Biden resulted in a relatively orderly transfer of power. Every other scenario we looked at involved street-level violence and political crisis. That's not a threat, though.
Yeah.
She went on, and we're quoting. With the exception of the big Biden win scenario, each of our exercises reached the brink of catastrophe with massive disinformation campaigns, violence in the streets, and a constitutional impasse, end quote. Again, not a threat at all. Elect our guy or America falls apart and people die. That's just a result of social science. That's what we found. So they said, the Transition Integrity Project said that their goal was to find out the very worst thing that could happen in a presidential election. And the assessment was clear. You could not allow Donald Trump to win or else America would end.
Yeah. I mean, you see the comedy in this. The comedy is that it's the bad guys, it's the enemies coming up with these assessments, right? So you think they're going to find one where it's just all good for Trump? No, they're all Trump's enemies putting this together. So of course they're going to come out with it and they're going to make it seem like it's official and bipartisan, right? But that's the illusion they put on for the first fail people, right? People that are stuck in the first fail. That's all for their benefit, right? And then for anybody who hasn't got the sophistication yet in the second fail, they may fall for that too. But for the most part, this is just for them to manufacture consent with.
So the Washington Post, owned by the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, dutifully printed these results in September 2020, 2 months before the election, just to give you a sense of what this was really about. But what was it really about? And will this project and this kind of thinking and the people who pulled it off have any effect on the coming presidential election? Well, J. Michael Waller's thought a lot about this. He once worked for the CIA. He knows a lot about the intel world, having been part of it. He's a senior analyst for strategy at the Center for Security Policy, the author of a new book called Big Intel. And we're happy to have him join us now to unpack the Transition Integrity Project. Thank you so much for doing this.
Great to be with you.
So what is, I characterized it briefly, but if you could just give us an overview, the Transition Integrity Project, what was and is it, and why does it matter?
It's the opposite of what it says it is.
Of course. Yeah, of course. It's not here to bring integrity to political transitions.
Maybe to their own, fundamentally transforming the country, but no.
Yes.
So whenever you hear these words, they're the opposite of what they mean.
Yes.
For these guys. It was to determine in 2020 that the transition from a Trump administration would be nice and orderly.
Right.
And if it wasn't orderly, the military should intervene to remove Donald Trump.
Okay. So it was calling for a military coup.
Right. And the head of the project, the co-founder of the project, Rosa Brooks, had actually called for reconsidering and getting rid of civilian control of the military back in 2016.
So if this is maybe a side road, but I think it's important, if the military is not controlled by elected officials, as it would be in a democracy, who would make decisions about military force?
They're not clear about that.
Oh, they're not clear about that.
This is banana republic stuff.
Well, of course, by definition.
Yeah, in the name of protecting our Constitution.
Yeah, military junta to save democracy. So Rosa Brooks has called for that.
Yeah.
So
and even when Trump was elected or inaugurated 2 weeks later, she wrote that we have to find a way to remove him from power.
So would you say, just so we can define terms at the outset, that anyone who calls for a military coup against an elected official is by definition an enemy of democracy?
Public enemy.
Yeah, right. So that, of course, didn't happen because, in my view, I think it's been demonstrated factually, they rigged the election and Joe Biden became the president. So did the Transition Integrity Project continue?
Well, they did the first part in semi-secrecy.
Yes.
This time, they're being more open about it. They're inviting reporters to their war games.
So same group.
It seems to be. They're not fully forthright about who the members are.
Right.
And they weren't at all in 2020. But now you've got retired generals.
So what would be the point of this?
What's up, Thomas? Thomas, you're gonna want to stick around and listen to this one. I know you're talking about something else going on here, but we're talking about this tonight. You're gonna dig this information, man. You want to stick around and listen to this interview, man. I'm telling you, it's gonna blow your mind. All right. Definitely check this out.
to make sure that their transition has integrity, meaning
Right.
that even according to their latest war games, if Donald Trump wins a free and fair election, he still has to be removed.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that? That's a little giveaway that right there. Even if it's wins flat out, like by a landslide, they still are going to come after him.
So if you have people, again, just a definition of terms, if you have people who are calling for the removal by force of an elected official, that is insurrection, right?
It's legal insurrection because they're doing this now through lawfare.
Right.
They're doing it through Georgetown University Law Center. So it's the
Right.
premier law school in Washington, D.C.
Right.
It's a feeder school to the Justice Department.
Yes.
It's a feeder school to Supreme Court clerks.
Right.
To the whole intelligence community. And this stuff is being planned there.
So a country that cared about its own preservation, cared to, see its own systems continue for the benefit of its grandchildren, would immediately shut down Georgetown University Law Center, obviously, because it's an insurrectionist.
Imagine if Hillsdale was doing this.
Right. But just for those of us who aren't following it on a day-to-day basis as you are, what are the mechanics of it? So there is a group of people who meet at Georgetown University Law School to think through how to seize power from Trump if he were elected in 2024. Is that what you're saying?
That's what we know now from when they themselves talked about it to NBC.
Yes.
And then they invited a reporter from the Atlantic to actually attend the event. And he was so disturbed by it. He said, this is a real problematic issue for people who believe in the Constitution. So even the Atlantic is thinking this is dangerous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that which says a lot, since the Atlantic has obviously taken a pretty strong position against the Constitution over a period of time. So,
so you have these red diaper babies like Rosa Brooks, who's comes from a household that was really on the Soviet side during the Cold War.
Yes, for sure.
Who was then a senior Pentagon official, selecting who the Obama generals would be, writing about how we have to end civilian control or reconsider or do away with civilian control of the military, wargaming out military coups against the sitting president, first after a disputed election, and now being the host of an entire project to unseat a president who they agree would have been legally and clearly elected by a majority of the public and electoral votes. This is done now in the name of protecting the Constitution. So you have the Transition Integrity Project of 2020, and whatever its name is right now, being run under Rosa Brooks at Georgetown University.
Who I think I'll just say, this is my opinion. I think Rosa Brooks is a violence fetishist. Loves violence, obviously, fantasizes about violence. So this should be, obviously it's a threat. Anybody with power who fetishizes violence domestically is scary, but there's sort of no one to call about this, right?
No, because what they're doing is they're manipulating the legal system. So somebody under her, Mary McCord, is sort of the Zelig of all of this. She's been characterized as this in the American Spectator. She's she's everywhere you look. So she is a counsel on the Trump Impeachment Committee 1, Impeachment Committee 2, the January 6th committee, all of these other things. She is involved in all of these and more. And she's running a program to plan over 100 pieces of litigation. They don't even know who the defendants will be because they're not even in office.
Right.
To sue to prevent the government from functioning if the election doesn't go the way they want it to. And her husband, his last name is Snook, he was one of these career anonymous bureaucrats working inside the Supreme Court. He's outside now, but his job is she puts together the litigation with her team. He makes sure it's not shopped to other jurisdictions where they won't win. So they want to keep it in the Washington, D.C. circuit where they're guaranteed to win.
Right. So I would assume.
Did you guys catch that, hon? Did you guys catch that? I switched my headset. Okay, good. I guess I left that. Sorry if my mic was open there. Yeah, did you guys catch that? Let me rewind it.
Job is she puts together the litigation with her team. He makes sure it's not shopped to other jurisdictions where they won't win. So
You hear that? That's the lawfare part of it. Thomas, man, watch this. Watch what's going on here. This is the key. Forget Europe right now, man. Watch this. This is what we're talking about. This is key. You're gonna want this information. Trust me. They're gonna go into the history of the deep state as well. And this is what they're planning on for 2024. This is what we have to be aware of right now in our country.
They want to keep it in the Washington, D.C. circuit where they're guaranteed to win.
Right. So I would assume that the intel agencies are involved in this.
We know retired are, and of course, you're not always retired when you
Right.
retire. And then you have former officials who still have security clearances. So even if they're retired, they still have access to classified information and a window inside the machine.
That needs to stop. Like, why we have to stop that? That's a loophole for subversion right there. That's just, you're just giving out all this information to people who are retired. Why do they need to have this? If they're retired, they're retired. And end of story. This is how people continue their careers after they supposedly retire. That needs to be cut off immediately. I don't know why we're doing that. It's a stupid thing to do, and it needs to stop.
Can I ask you, I mean, one of the great frustrations, there were so many frustrations in the Trump administration, like refusing to act in America's interest or
I see
even their own
that.
interest. But one of them was, why would you let Brennan, someone like Brennan, who's a liar and a force for violence and anti-Americanism, why would you allow that guy to continue to hold a security clearance? Why do any of these people still have their clearances? Why can't anyone do anything about that?
Exactly.
Well, they can. A president can revoke somebody's clearance or somebody
Revoke it
acting in
all.
the president's authority. It's just it's part of the big intel industry in Washington where you leave government service. So you built your whole career at taxpayer expense.
Right.
You have your security clearance. You go out then into the intelligence industrial complex to make a fortune as a contractor. And then you land university gigs and media gigs.
And but you retain your clearance as you do this.
Yeah.
So that's a massive advantage, correct?
Thomas, I guarantee you don't know this. I guarantee you don't know it. Listen, check it out. Check it out. You'll be very interested in this information.
It's huge because now you're already cleared. You're already in the system. You're already accepted. You're already one of them.
Right.
And so you're part of a fraternity.
So even though you're not working for the government and therefore not bound by any of the civil service rules, you can do whatever you want. You're just a private contractor.
Mhm.
There are very few limits on your behavior, but you still benefit from the knowledge of what the government is doing. You know a lot more about what the government's doing than the average taxpayer or voter, correct?
Right. And that's the reason some should keep their clearances, because we need that kind of institutional knowledge once people leave.
Right.
But we don't need it on this massive industrial scale like they have in Washington, D.C.
So again, why wouldn't, if you were the incoming Republican president, you just cancel the security clearances of people who are political actors?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not hard, is it?
No, because you're abusing it's a privilege to have a clearance.
Right.
It's an economic advantage.
I don't have a clearance.
No, I don't have a clearance.
Yeah.
So it's a privilege to have it, and you're doing it at the expense of the taxpayer. So you're still in effect a public servant, even if you're in the private sector. But this has just become one big club, one huge business, one big grift in many ways, but one
There it
big
is.
political war now, where you have a merger between hardcore political activists, violence fetishists, public enemy types, and the people who are supposed to be inside our system to serve our country and protect our Constitution.
So how do you think this plays out? Let's say Trump gets elected. What happens?
They'll have 100 pieces of litigation ready to go out the door.
All right, so here you go. Here's going to be the layout of his analysis of this group and their plan. And again, this guy used to work in the intel industry. He wrote the book Big Intel. He knows what he's talking about. He's part of a group now that's trying to fight against the corruption and call it out. He's one of the good guys, because there are good guys there still somewhere. And we tend to think of everything as being conglomerated. And he's going to explain why that is. Like, coming up here in this interview, he's going to explain to you why there are still good guys and what is going on that turned them bad, right? That turned the rest of them bad. We're this group of, he just described, how they are all conglomerated in this club together, right? So check it out.
During the presidential transition, to hamstring him, to hamstring all his.
Let's say Trump
There you
gets
go.
elected. What happens?
They'll have 100 pieces of litigation ready to go out the door during the presidential transition, to hamstring him, to hamstring all his appointees. They have their allies inside the government to slow walk security clearances to make sure that his appointees who don't have clearances cannot get clearance.
Hi, Evelyn.
He'll be a
Welcome.
one-term president, so the bureaucracy knows just ride it out, just drag things as slowly as you can, and make things as hard as you can, and then shop for the right judicial venues to make sure that you get a court circuit that will rule favorably in your case. So just think, when you're a Washington insider at Georgetown Law School and your husband was on the Supreme Court staff, you're networked across the Justice Department, you're networked among the judges, you know everyone. They're your friends.
Right.
They're your social circles. Of course they're going to help you.
It sounds like the swamp wasn't drained.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Nope.
Has it gotten stronger?
Yep.
Yeah, because President Trump came in saying he would drain it. He didn't have any idea what he was up against. He didn't have a team.
Yes.
He didn't have a strategy.
Nope.
He didn't have blueprints. He just went ahead and thought he could do it. And then look what happened. So the swamp is stronger than ever.
What is the opposing side, the Republican side, the campaign, the super PAC, the RNC, the institutions of resistance to the Biden administration? What are they doing to prepare for this onslaught of lawsuits if and when Trump wins?
I have no idea.
What do you mean you have no idea?
I am not aware of anything that's being done at present.
At all?
At all. On the outside, yeah. So Heritage Foundation has action plans. America First Policy Institute has action plans. Some other groups have action plans, or they're putting them together now, but there's nothing for the campaign or the party.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's, again, it's like, it takes all of us, right? There's only so much they can do. Are they going to have purview into to cover? Hopefully people get in there and get close to Trump and his team, can start pushing them towards the more important things. However, it takes a lot. It takes a whole movement, right? So these other people that he's naming off, these other groups that he's naming off, they're preparing, right? So a little bit of good news there, and what would seem like some bad news, that the campaign doesn't appear on the outside to be doing anything to get ready for it. Other people are thinking ahead, so that's good.
Some other groups have action plans, or they're putting them together now, but there's nothing for the campaign or the party.
At all?
No, the RNC is useless. They're no good.
But I thought Ronna McDaniel, I mean, I know she was flying private. What was she doing with her time?
I don't know, but she had a big, florist bill and limousine bill. I don't really know what she was doing to organize to attack against these corrupt entrenched interests. No idea.
What do retired military officers, I think a lot of people on the right, I'll speak for myself, always respected the military, and it's no longer true in my case, for sure, because you sort of wake up and you realize a lot of the flag officers and the people in charge of the Pentagon are political actors. Like, how did that happen? And how did we not notice it happening?
Like people who don't take care of their health.
Yeah.
They even know that something's happening, but they don't do anything about it until it's too late. Yeah. And then they wonder why they need amputations or chemo or whatever. That's the state we're in as a country right now. So if you look at the military, it's a self-selecting elite. So senior officers select their underlings for promotion, and they unselect other ones to not be promoted. And then if you're not promoted after a certain number of years as an officer, you have to leave the military.
Yes.
So you have the Obama generals in. And this is where, when people say Donald Trump's going to politicize the military and state.
Yeah, check this part out, man. When you start to talk about the military and how that's all set up, some people may know this, some people may not, but it's going to be eye-opening to some, for sure.
He never tried to politicize the military.
Right.
It was all Obama generals.
He believed in the military.
Yeah, as an institution.
Yes, he
did.
That
they would do the right thing.
Right.
Thinking, they were appointed under Obama, but they're not, quote, Obama generals. Well, so many of them were. He didn't understand that. People around him didn't understand it. Or even if they did, it can't be true, right? These guys, look at the stars on their uniforms, look at their ribbons on their chest. They're not politicians, but they are. They call themselves, grade scale. It's beyond my pay grade, rather.
Right.
So what's your pay grade? Not what's your rank. What have you done? It's what have you done to get ahead, to brown nose your way up to the top.
So of the senior generals in among the branches of the armed services, what percentage do you think might actually sign on to the idea that we need to wrest control from Trump if he becomes president? We need to stage a military coup.
It's hard to say because you just need a few, because then by law, everyone else must follow. Unless it's an unjust order, but then you get stuck in a legal limbo if you're arguing that I'm not going to follow an unjust or an illegal order. But if the chairman of the Joint Chiefs or all of the Joint Chiefs order something, you're bound to follow orders. And this is where we are today. We have a just following orders mentality in our military, like we do in the CIA, like we do in the FBI.
But the military didn't follow Trump's orders, of course. They defied him at every turn. He didn't do anything about it.
Right.
Totally passive and weak. But, they said, we're not going to protect the southern border, for example, period. Okay. But do you think it's possible that they actually would move on the White House?
It's really hard to say. I mean, before I would have thought this is crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff. Even though I know the military well, I've worked as a civilian contractor with the military for a long time.
Yes. I
know the intelligence community and the FBI pretty well. And I would have thought a few years ago, this is just crazy talk, but it's not.
It's not crazy talk. So it sounds like there are a lot of changes to our, at the state level, to our voting systems.
Yeah, but what he's saying, Wolfram, is he's saying, yeah, they may be bound to it, but they don't, because they're brown nosing their way up the ladder. And they're getting people in there like them that think that way, that are devoid of honor, and those are the people that get promoted. And if they don't get promoted within a certain amount of years, they have to retire from the military. So that's what's been going on for decades now, is that they've been promoting certain types that are maybe under their control, or maybe just psychologically line up with them. But yeah, they're looking for people who aren't going to refuse and report. They're going to go along with unlawful orders. That's the idea. That's what he's trying to get across right there. Yeah. So to rely on the morality of others in this day and age, it's a big gamble, especially when you have this woke military. I mean, we have a guy in a freaking wig and a dress running this goddamn place, right? And they have other guys in there forcing our military to dress up in heels and skirts and do weird shit, right? Where's the refusal and reporting going on with that? I mean, it's a great idea, and we should have soldiers that abide by it. But I'm willing to bet that that's the kind of people that are going to do it. And that if they do refuse and report, that they're not shuttled out the back door and never never have their voice heard. I don't know. I mean, it's a great idea. It should be that way. You're 100% right. I don't know that today's military or the higher ups in it abide by this. Otherwise, I think we would have seen something before now. But we'll see. We'll see. Thanks for bringing that up.
Maine, for example, just voted to consolidate its 2 congressional districts and award its electoral votes on the basis of the national popular vote. So these are big consequential changes that no one's paying much attention to, but they bring us a lot closer to the possibility of a tie, of a really, really messy election where it's going to be extremely hard for Trump to just win outright. If that happens, if we get to, basically tied or within 2 electoral votes and the popular votes really close, if we have a 2000 replay, Trump v. Gore, Bush v. Gore, rather, what role does the Election Integrity Project play in that?
They have the lawyers,
the
law professors, the networks of federal prosecutors, Justice Department attorneys, federal judges as their circle of friends.
Yes.
So they will make sure there's integrity to this transition. They'll make sure the votes are counted right. They'll make sure the processes are managed right. And then they will have a huge say in who is our next president.
Is it a little weird to just the composition of the 2020 team? So you had Bill Kristol, you had David Frum, and you had Max Boot.
Soviet import Max Boot.
Right.
Canadian import David Frum. But all 3 of them, no interest in the United States, have contempt for the United States, but all 3 of them became famous pushing more, killing. So they're foreign policy people, they're neocons. What would they, but their business is promoting violence. And Rosa Brooks, I think, is like some sort of like part-time para-cop or something, carrying a gun around, like a tough guy. These are all people whose day job and their obsession revolves around hurting other people physically. Kind of weird that they all wound up in the same project. Like that suggests that their goal is hurting people physically.
Yeah. And of course it's bipartisan, so they can call themselves a bipartisan project.
Yeah.
And then Georgetown keeps its
Yep.
501c3 status because it's doing it all bipartisan. It's not out to get a Republican president because it's a bipartisan effort with Max Boot.
Yes, see, but those guys aren't really bipartisan, and that's the illusion of choice, that the false left right paradigm, that's where it is right now, right? They should not in any way, shape, or form be able to get away with this. These people, we should be able to kick people out of the party, basically, that don't belong there, and that's what the RNC can do to do something good for a change, right? Besides blowing my phone up with freaking text messages that I'm never going to respond to. They need to be kicking people out that don't belong there, like Bill Kristol, like Max Boot, like all these other bullshit artists who use the Republican name as a blanket for as a cover, as a shield to collaborate with the corrupt establishment, right? And say it's bipartisan. That's there's another root cause issue right there. Like that's got to stop. Like you've got to take action against that. Nope, you guys are out of the party. You don't represent our views. Bye. Guy, have fun back on the left where you belong. Yeah, you can really collaborate with your buddies, right? Let's see, where are we at here? Back up a few seconds.
Project.
Yeah.
And then Georgetown keeps its 501c3 status because it's doing it all bipartisan. It's not out to get a Republican president because it's a bipartisan effort with Max Boot and Bill Kristol. And you're cast in one of their exercises also.
I'm cast in one of the exercises?
You, according to the Atlantic, you were up there on the border raising militias to fight illegal aliens, to cause state National Guards to go to war with one another, essentially, in this recent exercise.
And I assume I go to jail for that, or I'm killed or something.
I don't know what they decided to do with you.
It's not a bad idea, by the way. But interesting. So are you worried about what's going to happen in November?
Yeah, because again, you have the Democrat Party apparatus. They're really well mobilized for this. They have great legal teams for this. Donald Trump is on trial now because of this. They have plans to make sure that the government will not function under their transition integrity plan. So it's going to be a terrible mess. And then when you have the same individuals like Mary McCord, who runs this program out of Georgetown University Law Center, she's on with a Homeland Security connected program on extremism to decide who the extremists are.
I don't want to give people the impression that there's no hope at all, but it does feel like it's the majority of the population of the country against its power centers once again, and the power centers are even more powerful.
We have a good opportunity right now because we have a lot better lay of the land. Back in 2020, not much attention was paid to the Transition Integrity Project. It operated semi-secretly. Now it's come out of the closet and we know who more of the characters are. We've had 4 years to look at who these actors are and how they operate. We know a lot more about their game plan. They've gotten careless in a lot of areas. So if you do have an organized team, and President Trump, now that he knows what he's up against, he can focus on it more. And then other supporters of him, some of them have been victims of this personally, they can focus on it more. So I think between now and transition time, we're going to be a lot wiser. Last time they were just blindsided. So that's one part. Second part is there are teams out there who are already writing action plans. And 2 of the last chapters in Big Intel show action plans. What do you do with the FBI?
All right, hang on right there. Just a couple things. Like one thing Tucker said was, once again, it seems like it's us against the establishment, right? Just put it in the words. It's the establishment versus the rest of us, right? And if you are aware of that and you're resisting it, you're part of the anti-establishment. Welcome. That's the only paradigm there is. That's where so many people miss the boat on what's going on right now. They really miss it. Oh, we got time. Oh, this will never happen. You're still into that old first fail programming. If you think that, no, we are running out of time. They are getting desperate. They're ramping up. They're unveiling in front of us the corruption constantly every day, whether it's a trial or censorship or continuing to push the WEF UN Agenda 2030 on us with a big smile on their face, like it's the right thing and the greatest thing ever for us to all do. Entering into treaties with these people that take away our rights, trying to enter into this pandemic treaty that which thankfully didn't go through the first time, but they're still going to try to push it through. This right here, right? And then when he said that, now that we know, right? We didn't know what we were last time. We didn't know. And this goes back to what I was talking about, like each incursion, right? Each time we run against the establishment, we get a little bit further. They unveil a little bit more of their cards, right? And every time is a learning opportunity. Even going back to the Ron Paul days, each time Ron Paul ran and became more popular, we learned more of their dirty tricks. We learned more of what they were going to do. Trump came in and cruised by those roadblocks, right? And got all the way to the White House. Now we know exactly what they're going to do when you get anti-establishment in the White House. The establishment's still in power, right? They unveiled the deep state. They unveiled lawfare. They unveiled all these other cards thanks to Trump. That's why you got to have someone as tough and untouchable as Trump as president during these times. Like there's this no, you can't get Joe Average as president right now. It's not going to work. They're going to run over him. They'll take them out like you wouldn't believe. They'll co-opt them or take them out or whatever, like faster than you could ever imagine. You have to have people that are above their influence and are not reliant on them in any way, shape, or form, and have not been bought off by them, and are not under the influence of them, like a Trump, like a Vivek Ramaswamy, right? They're independently wealthy, right? They got their heads on straight. They're America first, right? And they understand probably Vivek more than even Trump at this point, but understand some of the key issues that are coming up on us right now, right? And what's going to be important and what's going to be important to tackle first. But every run we've learned something, and so now we've learned through this last run, which was a fail, right? But we learned about this whole little mechanism they have, how they're gonna rig the game. They had to show us how they rigged the game. Now we know how it's rigged. Now we can focus on it. That's pretty much what he was just saying right there. Him and then Tucker and then him. So I just want to comment on those. This is why someone like Trump is the right person for this time. You have to be tough enough to deal with all this shit so they come at you. They're unveiling their cards every time. They're showing you what they're going to do, and they're going to show us more of what they're going to do. Right. And hopefully they don't go to the biggest extremes there is. Hopefully we stop that before it happens, because they don't care if the world goes into chaos. They'll be in their ivory towers watching. Right. So it's up to us to do the work, to make sure it doesn't happen, to reach other people, to spread the awareness, right? We'll see. When you see they're trying to adopt plans to end all DEI hiring in the Department of Defense, and yeah, we need it. We need it, and that's a rejection of Agenda 2030 and the UN and those plans, right? Didn't earn it. That's right, Thomas. They didn't earn it. Let me see anything up here. So yeah, hopefully we've learned this time, and they're preparing for it. Like I was 2018, I was hoping we would learn something then too, to avoid 2020. But sometimes you got to fall down and got to learn the hard way, and then you get back up even stronger. So let's hope that that's what we're seeing right here. And yeah, that's right, Wallstrom. Exactly. All the things they say Trump would do, that's what they plan on doing, and that's what they would do, or that's what they're going to do. Right? It's always inversion. Evil always inverts the truth. Evil always inverts the truth. That's in their playbook. And of course, we just recently, I think the last Unveiling Reality we did saw Alinsky's rules for radicals. Like I was saying in that stream, those rules for radicals are now baked into everything that they do. Like they don't even have to teach the damn book, right? It's baked into everything they do. That's why we get so much resistance when it comes to trying to have a conversation. That's why the communication breaks down. That's why they always resort to the methodologies they do. It's just they learn by watching themselves, right? Oh yeah. Yeah, we covered that one. That was a good show. We dug into it. I didn't read the whole book, but we talked about the points in it and went through it and talked about how, like I said, it's baked in now. So they don't even have to like hand the book out to these people they're indoctrinating in colleges and other places. It's already baked into their behavior. So they see it on all levels. All right, let me back this up a little bit.
Second part is there are teams out there who are already writing action plans, and two of the last chapters in Big Intel show action plans. What do you do with the FBI? What do you do with the CIA? What can a president do with executive orders? And then what executive orders can be made into law so they can't easily be reversed? Trump didn't have that the first time around.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, it is good news. But then we also have something at our local levels, especially in parts of the country where the county sheriffs are very strong.
Yes.
Because the sheriffs are the last line of defense constitutionally between the central government and the local people, local jurisdictions. And since sheriffs are democratically elected from the local level, they can determine whether or not to help federal authorities if the feds come into an area and abuse their power. They depend on the sheriffs and the local cops. The sheriffs can put a stop to that. So it matters for us to be empowering our sheriffs in states where the sheriffs are strong, and then getting rid of sheriffs who are going to be weak about it.
I want to ask you about the thesis of your book, Big Intel, how the CIA and FBI went from Cold War heroes to deep state villains.
Here we go. This is the history. This is the background. You guys are gonna be blown away by this. Some people may know some of this, but you're gonna be like, and then for a lot of it, it'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I was on the right track, or okay, that's the key. I didn't know that before, but that makes sense with all the other stuff I've learned, right? So check it out.
Since you've worked in and around this world a lot of your life, just summarize for us, if you would, how that happened, how you think that happened.
It began, and this is something that J. Edgar Hoover warned about back when he was a 25-year-old State Department or Justice Department lawyer. His job was to identify and round up foreign communists, anarchists, radical socialists, and deport them back to Russia. That was his job. And this was at a time of anarchist terrorist violence where they tried to assassinate the Attorney General of the United States and so forth. So you'd had a president, McKinley, previously assassinated by him.
Killed the mayor of Chicago, and they killed a lot of people.
Yeah. So this was all going on. So he was the number one person in the Justice Department to fight against this Marxism and anarchism.
Yes.
But not just the violent stuff, but the subversive parts, about infiltrating our institutions, our schools, our universities, our news media, Hollywood, legal professions, churches, you name it. He was warning his entire career. That's why he was so reviled by the left. He was warning about this the whole time. So the FBI, as he created it, was not there simply to enforce federal laws and fight spies, but in Hoover's idea, to defend the American way of life. FBI gave that up a long time ago.
Yeah.
So the penetrations of our institutions that he warned about became fact because he saw them happening. But it wasn't stopped. The U.S. kept bringing them in mainly from Europe, importing foreign communists from Europe who were being so-called, victims, or real and imagined victims of different types of totalitarian, whether they were escaping from Stalin because they didn't like his cult of personality, or they were escaping from Hitler, who was going to wipe them out anyway. We brought them in here, but we didn't require them to become real Americans. Instead, they were set up at Columbia University to teach the teachers, to bring these Soviet-created institutions, import them completely to American universities, to teach the teachers and to discipline the radicals. And then you have people like Angela Davis and other hardcore radicals were taught and mentored by them. These guys gave the intellectual basis to new left radicalism in the 60s to bring us what we could now call critical theory, critical race theory. This is where DEI comes from. So it all comes from these former Soviet operatives from a century ago.
Agents of subversion, right? They came over here, we're given a second chance, and they said, you know what? And it made me think about it when I heard this. I was like, their whole story, their whole story to get here was probably fabricated just to infiltrate the government. That's how subversion works, right? We've learned about that from Yuri and others. And then they went about the demoralization process, like right on schedule. Where did they go? Went to the youngest generations and started subverting them, right? They started the process of ideological subversion, and now you see how they were given the red carpet into our country by these people, by this corruption, right? And you can see how far it goes back and how long it's been at work. Yes, there's been numerous activities that that correspond with this, right? But this is where the real indoctrination, the subversion, the ideological subversion, the grooming, if you will, and started, and what it's become, right? How it's gone from this political correctness to wokeism, right? We talked about that too. We've done shows on that, on this very show on Unveiling Reality, going way back. I'm talking about it forever. But yeah, so now you kind of get an idea of who let them in the door and how easy it was for them just to walk in and start the subversion process. And they did work on a generational plan, right? To subvert the young generation and teach them. And now they're up there. Now they're the ones grown up in teaching and subverting others, right? It's a self-perpetuating subversion machine now. And they knew that going in. So this is no doubt was a strategy to help destroy this country going way back, in which the dumbasses or the very evil people, probably a combination of both, let them right in the door and put them right where they needed to be, putting them above Americans and others, right? And give them the keys. Say, go do it. You know, why would we allow this, right? It's the abuse of our free speech society. They're abusing it, right? We don't push back. This is what Yuri was saying. Yuri Bezmenov was saying. There is no counter, right? And he was literally telling you what this guy's telling you right now, Yuri was, that there was no counter to this. So generations are having this Marxist-Leninist ideology pumped into their soft brains, and there's no response to it. Nobody's pushing back against it and saying, no, you know, this isn't just until it's too late. Till we got generations of people that have been indoctrinated by it. Now people are trying to do something, right? And now it's twice as hard. And there were people back in the day that were talking about it. They were getting what? They were getting the treatment, right? They were getting shoveled under the door, called conspiracy theorists, called Red Scare, called all this stuff, right? They were getting hammered. And what do we have? We didn't have the internet back then. We just had news media and print media and things like that. So very small reach. But people like G. Edward Griffin, you know, who agree with most things about, you know, some things I don't. But he was out there back in the day in black and white and a nice suit and tie, trying to warn people about this. And we saw other warnings from the past, right? That people never heeded. They were too busy, or they never got to see it, or it was buried, or they didn't believe it. They couldn't bring themselves to believe it, right? It's just so much easier to not believe that it's real when it is, right? So this is how it was enabled. This is how it was enabled and how it was perpetuated. And now you're seeing this is the beginning of it right here, right?
Former Soviet operatives from were taught and mentored by them. These guys gave the intellectual basis to new left radicalism in the 60s to bring us what we could now call critical theory.
Hear that? Yeah. So these are the people that came over there and trained up all the radicals that went out there and acted like they gave a shit about something, but we're just trying to demoralize and destabilize the country. And when you learn something like this, now everybody's at their different part, you know, their different spot in their awakening and their understanding of the world and their growing sophistication of the world. Everybody's at a different place right now. Now, this is one of those moments for some people that's going to be like, wow, everything's a lie, you know, everything's a fraud. Don't get demoralized by that. All right. You were born into it. You had nothing to do with it. It's just your job now, because you're here to fight against it. Right. You've been given the grace. You're through it. So don't let it get you down. It's not hopeless. But I know that for a lot of people finding this kind of information out, like all these protests that I've seen my whole life that are supposed to be so virtuous and altruistic, these are frauds. And you're leaving a bad belief system behind and adopting a new one right now. That's all it is. But know that you have people right here that understand that have been through it. And so that's why I say, I know when this kind of information comes across to some folks, depending on where you're at in the waking up process, not the woke, the waking up process, right? to the reality of the world, because as we are unveiling reality, right? That's what the show's all about, right? That this moments like this could be difficult because it's overwhelming to understand that all this stuff that you've been taught, all the that you've been taught about the past was all the same silly and weird optics that we're getting today with our information. Just done a few decades back, different delivery system, different different people, but the same thing. Optics, always. That they're creating this false narrative for you, right? And the rebellion, the rebellion ingrained in the youth, right? Abusing that rebellion to put it against the system. And these people that were out, these radical leftists, thought they were actually anti-establishment, and to a degree, they might have, they might have been like to but not to the degree that we are talking about today, right? Maybe that America was a little too fundamentalist, and that opened the door for a less fundamental idea, an idea that would buck the tight grip of fundamentalist ideas. Attractive, right? Attractive. We have to find a way to be in the middle of that, still remaining immoral in what we do, but never go back to a tight grip, Bible thumping kind of fundamentalism, because that's just another brand of authoritarianism. It is. So this is what I'm talking about with solution culture, right? When you arm people from the beginning with the right information, with the right tools to defeat the fallacies and the false premises of liars and subverters, right? You give them media literacy education. That's right. And by the way, I did say that I was going to go over something that we'll tie it into this at the end, I think, or I'll save it for another show. We'll see where we're at the end. But I was going to go into that as well. Like, they're trying to actually implement some of these ideas, but with the establishment narratives, right? So that's why we have to get on it. Anyways, yeah. So yeah, I get it. So just hang in there though, because think of it as a blessing that you've been relieved from those false ideas about what these protests and these war protests and stuff are really about. Now you know the truth, and now you're free.
Then you have people like Angela Davis and other hardcore radicals were taught and mentored by them. These guys gave the intellectual basis to new left radicalism in the 60s to bring us what we could now call critical theory, critical race theory. This is where DEI comes from. So it all comes from these former Soviet operatives from a century ago.
So, but how does, the CIA abroad, FBI domestically were designed and, consume enormous budgets every year in order to defend us from that stuff? How did they become captured by it?
It was first the precursor to the CIA. So it was during World War II.
OSS.
With the Office of Strategic Services. And Bill Donovan, who was a wonderful guy, his job was to fight the Nazis and their allies.
Yep.
But he needed experts who spoke the languages in those occupied parts of Europe and elsewhere, who had motivations, who had academic expertise and linguistic expertise. And he brought in a whole lot of communists into the OSS, German Communist Party members, a lot of others. And when they came in, their job was to settle World War II, not on American terms, but on Stalin's terms.
Which they did.
So when, with the Yalta conference with Roosevelt, that was all run by Stalin agents or Stalin supporters, and the anti-communist liberals like George Kennan were just kept out completely, and Stalin got his way on practically everything.
Oh, I noticed. Yeah, we joined the fight against the Nazis because they invaded Poland and then handed Poland to the Soviets. What?
Yeah. And this is the logic coming out of it. So you had even the CIA to this day says one of its original intellectuals from the OSS was Herbert Marcuse.
Yep.
Now Marcuse was a Stalinist who then broke with Stalin, but he still became a communist, and America imported him to become a professor in the United States to teach generations of college students, including law students, including diplomats, including community organizers. He built the theory for a lot of this stuff, and we're seeing it now with DEI, and that's has been imposed on the whole intelligence community and the FBI, just like we see it every place else.
But I think for most of us who weren't paying super close attention, even though I've been around it a lot, just living in Washington, knowing people who work there, I don't think most people really understood that the intel agencies play in domestic elections. They're subverting elections around the world. They're stopping democracy to save democracy in other countries, which is, we probably should have paid more attention to that. But I don't think most people I know ever imagined the CIA would have the brass to try and influence an American presidential election, or the FBI would ever do that.
It's a crime.
Of course, it's a crime.
I mean, it's a federal felony to do what they're doing, and they're doing it all the time. Every time they leak classified information to the press, someone in the apparatus is committing a felony. It's almost never investigated.
What's so interesting, though, is I had a long conversation with the CIA director about this under Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, and he's outraged that, you know, that people be telling the truth about what the CIA is doing, and actually threatened me over it through his lawyer. And I remember saying, but wait a second. First of all, you're the one committing the crime, A. B, you leak against your domestic political opponents all the time. And I thought that was a fair point, actually. And I've said it on television. And yet Mike Pompeo was treated like a non-criminal by everyone I know. Like, how does this, no one seems to care. I guess that's the point I'm making.
Yeah. And people are afraid of it. They're afraid to touch it.
Why?
Even writing this book, they're saying, are they going to get you? They really think the FBI is going to somehow, get me in a car accident, or, make me drink polonium tea or something.
But does that happen?
Who knows?
What do you think?
I honestly don't know what to think anymore. I used to think it was crazy talk.
Yeah, me too.
But if you think, why does the whole intelligence community still have the Kennedy assassination files classified? They've declassified almost all, but there's still over 1,000 pages that are not declassified. Why, after all this time, has it not been fully declassified? I don't know. I'm not saying the CIA was behind it. I don't think that you can get a Marine who becomes a communist, who defects to the Soviet Union, who marries a Soviet wife and is allowed to shoot at a Soviet rifle range, to come back to agitate for Fidel Castro. I don't think the CIA was ever clever enough to pull off something like that.
Right.
And Kennedy really gave the CIA a lot of free rein. Both Kennedy brothers did. But why is the intelligence apparatus still keeping those secrets? There's no reason to protect sources.
Well, it's only been 61 years.
Yeah.
Every source is dead.
Yeah.
Well, of course. But do you think so I'll just speak for myself. I didn't realize that this was happening until 2016. You're saying that these agencies were corrupted ideologically in the 1940s. So do you believe that between, let's just say, CIA was founded in 47-ish, 46, something like that, I think?
Right.
Do you think between then and 2016, they were trying to influence domestic politics?
Sure. They were doing it originally in the name of fighting the Soviets and fighting communism,
Right.
by leaking to the media and by co-opting American reporters. But when you're doing that, you're influencing how Americans think. You're influencing public opinion.
And therefore influencing election outcomes.
Exactly.
Right.
But it wasn't naked like this. I mean, FBI Director Hoover gathered intelligence for political opponents of whatever president wanted him to, Democrat or Republican. There was Roosevelt, FDR, and the Kennedys who really wanted him to work for them against political opponents, and Lyndon Johnson, to a lesser degree, Nixon. But, FBI got the best of Nixon after Hoover's death.
Yeah, I noticed.
But the FBI wasn't infiltrated by this cultural Marxism that has penetrated every place else, because Hoover had defended against that infiltration. FBI was a hard target. After in the Clinton administration, when attitudes began to change, that's when you saw the just cultural byproducts of American education and American popular culture, and critical law theory being taught now in almost all American universities. So this is Herbert Marcuse and the communist interpretation of using the law as a weapon.
Yeah, how about that? That critical law theory. No one talks about that one, right? Critical law theory. Critical law theory. So that how to law theory, how to subvert the Constitution, how to get around the rules. Is that what's going on there? I'd like to hear a lawyer kind of chime in about critical law theory. I wonder if there's any lawyers out there that in our sphere, our friendship circle, that that might want to comment on that. That'd be awesome.
Manipulating the Constitution as a weapon for a different end.
There you go.
This all started happening now when these lawyers start populating the Justice Department in large numbers.
Yeah, it makes you realize, I mean, that right there and what we're seeing with our very own eyes every day, right? With these court cases, it makes you realize how bad off our justice system is right now. It's really bad. It's like, if you think it's whatever you think it is in terms of bad, go ahead and multiply it a few times. Like, it's really bad when it gets to that level. Where the lawyers, the judges, everybody's in on it. Everybody's in on it. They don't have a care or an ounce of guilt about what they're doing and what it means. And maybe they don't even realize it, or they don't have a full grasp on it. I don't know. You know, they're so out for themselves. They're so out for the win, and not for the truth, not for justice. Right? They've divorced themselves from truly being in it for justice, and now it's just about them. And they've been manipulated to go about and use all these dirty little shitty little tactics, right? To destroy what would be a great system if it was used right. We have to have something in place, and something that's active and ready to react and get things done immediately to take care of that. A long time ago, way back when, I had this idea after experiencing corrupt court systems in college. I was like, having our parties broken up when we would follow all the rules, things like that, and just hearing about if you ever got a ticket in this town, you're automatically guilty. Everything's rigged. Everything was rigged in this town. Because that was their source of income, right? So the corruption was about funding, basically transferring wealth from students and their parents to the poorest town, right? The poor town. And I said, we need to have a department of civil liberties, right? And that's just this is college me thinking, right? But people that would go around and basically just watch or check up on reports of corruption, and by observing and seeing them, and when they break a constitutional rule, to fine and charge them, and then put them on a probationary period that would lead to them being fired if they were not didn't correct their ways. Like, we need to have people in the courtrooms all over the country, basically, I would say spying on, but no, doing their job and observing the court system in those areas, and making sure that every judge, lawyer, and anybody, a prosecutor, is obeying the Constitution and the law. And any slights, any variations, quickly react to it, quickly take them off, remove their ability to influence the justice system. And you got to hit them hard, and you got to hit them fast. And that's the way I think to start doing something about that. And then you'll get citizen support for it, because, as long as that system doesn't become corrupt, then you'll have a real defender for people, getting railroaded. This cannot continue. This is happening. And they have to have the authority to step above the judge and say no. The problem is the judge has the authority, right? And in the moment, they can pull all kinds of bullshit, as we've been seeing. We see it all the time. Like the Karen Reed trial, or the Trump trial. The Trump trial, the Alex Jones trial. There's so many that they're just completely off the rails. What they did to Owen Schwartz, what they did to the J6ers, what they did to the kidnapping hoax in Michigan, right? All these things constantly being bombarded by the fact that our justice system is corrupt. And there you have it. Now you know more about the history of that and how it came to be. And in that, we learn the solutions, what we need to do to react to it, and to that it is on the plate. It has to be fixed. There's no just electing the right president and then suddenly the justice system is fixed. No, you have to do the work. You have to do the work. Let's see. Wish I could find. Okay, so where.
This all started happening now when these lawyers start populating the Justice Department in large numbers, and then the rest of the bureaucracy by the 90s. But they didn't have a critical mass to get together, because our intelligence community was divided up into many different agencies. So it could never abuse
Key point
power
coming up
effectively
right here.
until after 9/11, when President George W. Bush centralized everything, created an FBI with a super management of 60 new management positions at the top, and an office of the director of national intelligence to coordinate what were now 18 different intelligence agencies.
You hear that? So the centralization has made it even worse. You know, this management level for the intelligence agencies, bringing everybody together so we can work together, stop terrorism. Remember that? That was the manufactured consent, right? So that was the manufactured consent. They manufactured our consent to do this. We have to roll that back. That's one step to start freeing up some of the good people to be able to work, right? Because now, even if you're a good person in there, you're getting managed from above, right? Everybody has to coordinate. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to do the same thing. And we know what happens when everybody has to do the same thing. Everybody ends up being the same kind of shithead.
So he set up a vertically powerful centralized
I
apparatus
noticed.
that a revolutionary like Obama could come in and politicize.
And that's exactly what he did. How did he get away with it? How do they keep getting away with all this stuff? Right? It's right here. It's right here. And boom. Who was perfect to come in there and start someone with no conscience, start abusing it, someone with no conscience and no love for this country. Right? Someone who thinks that all his problems is because of the white man. Right? Someone, you know, even though he's half white. Someone who wants to divide the country, someone who loves Marxist ideology, who grew up as a community supporter, right? Who schmoozed his way in on the color of his skin to the White House, right? With no real experience, wasn't the best man for the job. He was just a salesman. Well, you know, he's just a salesman, a grifter. He was the best grifter with who fit the profile, who would activate all the programming in it and all the people who are bought into the bullshit, right? And yes, they got him right in there. Perfect, right? And not only that, I said, you know, we want this guy to do a lot of damage. So Hillary stepped down and let him take it. That's why the only reason it wasn't Hillary that time. Because they're like, we want him to take the brunt of this. You don't want to take the brunt of what he's going to be asked to do, right? You don't want to take the responsibility for that. You know, we'll put you in a nice little neocon position and we'll let you get your blood out there, right? We'll let you get your blood on there. But no, it was, you know, Obama was that, again, it's making it more clear why he was the one that was picked for that time in that place. President, man, everybody wants George Washington. You know, they want heck, we want Ron Paul. We want that kind of president, right? We want the old grandfather, you know, honest to goodness constitutionalist. You could trust them. He'd chop down the cherry tree and tell you if you lied about it kind of guy. It's not that time. We are in a time of war. We were born into it. It's just not the kind of war you learned about in high school and before that. It's a different kind of war. It's a much more devastating kind of war, believe it or not. It'd be easier just to get out and fight in the street, right? But that's not the way this goes down. This is a permanent takeover of a major superpower in the history of the world, right? And it has to be destroyed from the inside. They've learned from their history. Will we?
You know, I was there for all that in Washington covering this stuff. I knew the people, and they used 9/11.
We're now 18 different intelligence agencies.
Wait, hold on. I just want to rewind it.
So he set up a vertically powerful centralized apparatus that a revolutionary like Obama could come in and politicize.
So yep. I was there for all that in Washington covering this stuff. I knew the people, and they used 9/11, of course, to achieve this. And they told us in the weeks and months after 9/11 that the main problem, the error that allowed 9/11 to happen, was lack of communication between different federal agencies. CIA is not talking to FBI. They're siloed. And that's how 9/11 happened.
Yeah. And you know what? They can manufacture that too. They can exploit that system and then say, well, that's the reason why I was able to go off. Right. They could have nudged it along. They could have caused the failure to fail. Right. Instead of being the hero and stepping up, letting it fail so that they can then use it as an excuse to centralize. And that's why I think when the people say it was inside job, it was rigged, you know, something like that, they're missing the big takeaways here, where the benefit was, right? The dysfunction of the system manufactured the consent for the consolidation of it. So what do you have now? This vertical down, like you just said, a vertical down approach to intelligence that was just right for a revolutionary or somebody with no soul, someone corrupt and evil and criminal at heart to take over. Still today, still the vice president then, the president now, take it out today, right? And abuse the hell out of it. And that's all we've seen that's happened since that. That whole thing needs to be trashed. That's, again, this is why I think this interview is so freaking awesome. It's really just fleshing out all the root cause issues that led to this, where we're at today, in terms of the control over the system, the corruption in the deep state and our government. These type of really key things we need to be looking at, right? It's basically giving you the history course and exactly how it went about happening piece by piece. And for some of us, we know. Some of us, it's an addendum to the information that we have. For others, it's brand new information, right? And tell you what, if you're digging this, please give me a thumbs up. Please give me a follow, subscribe. YouTube's always rating my subs. We got a goal over there on Rumble to reach 1,000 by the end of the year. It's getting there. I appreciate everybody that's been joining, man. It's been going really great lately. We're at 429. Who wants to be number 430? Go ahead and just hit that follow, hit the thumbs up for me, and say hello in the chat. We don't bite. We love to talk to you. And thank you for being here. But anyways, yeah. So let's continue.
And that's how 9/11 happened. That, in retrospect, seems like one of countless lies they've told, but also it seems like a calculated lie, lack of communication between different federal agencies. CIA is not talking to FBI; they're siloed, and that's how 9/11 happened.
Wasn't
that, in retrospect, seems like one of countless lies they've told, but also it seems like a calculated lie in order to increase their power over American society.
Yeah, it was a combination of lies and distortions, and then certain truths. Where the FBI had information, the CIA had information, but they didn't share it, so they couldn't connect all the dots.
I think that's proven.
So you take, let's say that the good people who are, or at least were in,
and that's what I'm talking about. They exploited it, right? They exploited the gap in communication they knew was there.
They were trying to do their jobs, but they couldn't do their jobs, and they weren't allowed to talk to people in other ways. There was no mechanism. Then you get the cynics in there who are the power grabbers. You centralize the FBI now with 60 new management positions. That means you're incentivizing the brown nosers in the system to fight their way to the top.
Right.
It didn't happen that way before.
So you're saying, and this is what I think people who know a lot about the system conclude after a while, the structure matters. The nature of the bureaucracy drives the policy in the end. Yeah.
And now you have an incentive system where if you don't subscribe to all the tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and whatever other things they're adding on to this, you don't have to just go along with it to be a good professional or a decent colleague. You have to actively live it. And if you don't, that's a mark against you in your promotion.
Right. So you got to buy the trans thing 100%, or you're just not going to get a raise.
Yeah. And not just buy it. You have to be what they call an advocate now.
An ally,
advocate, ally. There you go. You got it. Yeah. And if you're not an ally, that's a count against you.
What's up, Thread? How you doing, man?
Qualms about it,
of course, right?
Because that's what the whole thing. That's what made the FBI one of the better of the American federal institutions, was that it tried to recruit people of character. It's not. It gave up on that a long time ago.
Well, right. It's recruiting people with no character. So what about Chris Wray? Like, what is that? You look at Chris Wray, and he doesn't have a background that suggests evil, but he's obviously
thank you. You as well.
Yeah.
Like how?
He's just your typical weaselly Washington attorney who makes a lot of money through the Washington game.
Yeah.
It's all ultimately a taxpayer expense, even if the client isn't necessarily the taxpayer. Then he gets a fancy government position. He parlays that into a bigger interest in his law firm, and now he's got added prestige. And then, boom, he becomes the new sort of non-political Chris Christie recommended FBI director.
Did you hear what you just said? Now he's got the prestige. What was Vivek Ramaswamy talking about on Unrig the Game last time when we read the intro to his book, Woke Inc.? That's our new book we're reading on at 8 p.m. Eastern on Mondays for Unrig the Game. We do the kickoff show here on YouTube, and then we go exclusively to the free speech platforms, Rumble and X. And that's the book. In his introduction, he talked about the prestige. That was the third thing, right? That was the third thing he talked about, as what they were going for is the prestige, why they've adopted all this wokeness in corporate America and across the private sector, right? The prestige, the selling point, the big thing, right? That they're all after. It's wild that he just said that.
FBI director.
Chris Christie recommended him.
Yeah. It's all ultimately a taxpayer expense, even if the client isn't necessarily the taxpayer. Then he gets a fancy government position. He parlays that into a bigger interest in his law firm, and now he's got added prestige. And then, boom, he becomes a new sort of non-political Chris Christie recommended FBI director.
Chris Christie recommended him.
Yeah.
I just wanted to stop on that look. That's a look. Chris Christie recommended him. Boom. Oh, how could you? Like even Tucker knew better than to take a recommendation from Chris Christie. He's like, oh, come on, don't let that happen again, please.
But you look at Chris Wray and you think, how can he allow this?
He's just weak. When you have the whole nerve center taken over by militant crazies, the management system, and then you have one very loudmouth person with a few advocates inside the apparatus to say, we need now a senior leader for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and this must be incorporated in every single aspect of FBI life.
Right.
He goes along with all of this stuff.
And it's a short hop, or maybe an inevitable hop from there to, hey, let's control the outcome of the 2024 presidential election.
Yeah, because their biggest case in FBI history is rounding up people who are being charged with nothing more than misdemeanors. Forget the felons being charged, right? On misdemeanor counts, you don't have, that's not what the FBI was for, to hunt down people for misdemeanors. But you're now raiding people's homes for what, unauthorized assembly and unlawful parading,
right, and
trespassing, and you're running SWAT teams against them, and you're wrecking their families, and you're wrecking their reputations and their lives over misdemeanors. This is the FBI's biggest case in its
January 6th
in its entire history. Yeah. So you have agents, and you've had some of them here with you, who have been pulled off, child sex trafficking cases and counterintelligence cases, going after foreign spies. No, now to round up misdemeanor people.
Yeah. 65-year-old people with diabetes who live in trailer parks who like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The weakest, most vulnerable people in our society.
Yeah. And it's to set an example and to make people afraid, to make people feel isolated and then depressed and helpless.
But if January 6th is going to be your biggest case, why would you ignore the attempted pipe bombings on Capitol Hill that day? What is that?
I don't know. They just had FBI just put out a statement the other day about the Unabomber being busted 29 years ago. So they're bragging about one single case from a generation ago, and they can't even find someone who was caught on camera supposedly putting, pipe bombs at the RNC and the DNC.
It seems pretty clear that was the intel agencies doing that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible?
I would have thought it was crazy. I was at the Capitol that day. I was on the Senate side, so I live on Capitol Hill. And I thought, well, I'm just going to walk over. And I was kind of bummed because, our country's going to change forever now. And we thought, well, let's just go one last time and see real Americans, So we just went, because I've been to tons of these different protests. And I know the Capitol Police really well because they're my neighbors.
Yes.
And we were 3 blocks behind the leaders of the group because we just happened to walk into it on Constitution Avenue. And I thought, something's wrong. The hurricane fence is gone. There are no canine units for the Capitol Police. There's no Capitol Police visibility at all. And just followed the crowd right up to the Capitol. And it was a pro-police crowd. And there was no trouble until it was either the Capitol Police or the DC Metro Police who started firing tear gas and flashbangs into the crowd, 50, 60, 80 feet away from where there was trouble. And we didn't know there was trouble up in the front.
What do you think that was? Why was there on the day of a planned protest that every law enforcement and intel agency in the United States had conference calls about for weeks? Why was there no hurricane fencing or canine units?
Can't speak about the canine units, but the hurricane fencing, it turns out, was taken down. But there was no police presence at all. There was no manpower. In fact, on the way to the march, I walked past Capitol Police headquarters, had a chat with a Capitol policeman who was putting on his shin guards, and he had a billy club, and I was admiring his billy club because it was an old school kind. And they were really relaxed. Even the Capitol Police were relaxed. They were not prepared.
Yeah, they had no idea.
No. Now, some in the Capitol Police, I think, did have an idea. One
Yeah.
of them, Yogananda Pittman, who was in charge of intelligence for the Capitol Police. But the Capitol Police doesn't have an intelligence unit. They get their stuff from the FBI and the Secret Service and Homeland Security. So she got what was being supplied by the federal executive branch agencies, but she didn't tell her chief.
No. No, I've talked to him about it at great length, and then she was rewarded by Nancy Pelosi with a very high-paying job, apparently, in the University of California system.
Yeah.
So, yes. So if you were just to end with the big picture question, if you were to guess on the basis of deep knowledge, is this system ever reformed? It doesn't seem like you can have a democracy in a country where the big decisions are made by unelected people whose budgets you don't know and who operate in secrecy.
Right. And with even a House of Representatives that will vote for continuing resolutions to continue to pump cash into this machine.
Well, because they're afraid of the machine.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a committee chairman, if you're Mike Rogers, maybe you've got some things to hide. You're afraid of them. I mean, I witnessed it personally. They're
Yeah. Oh, I
afraid
have
of
too.
it.
I'm not going to mess with the FBI, the CIA.
Exactly.
Congressmen tell you this.
Well, of course.
Although, now you've got Congressman Pete Sessions.
Yes.
He's chairman of a subcommittee that has jurisdiction over what's going on at Georgetown University, because Georgetown University Law School they get a ton of federal money.
Of course.
Mary McCord's program, or her law school area, gets not only federal money, but Chinese money. They just got a $30 million grant last year from a Taiwanese businessman who made his fortune as a financier of the Chinese Communist Party on the mainland.
Yeah.
So he puts $30 million into this, Georgetown's biggest gift in its history since it was founded in the 1700s.
How about that?
So you have all this happening. So anyway, Congressman Sessions is investigating this. He had a very fast response to that Atlantic article and to the other articles, American Spectator, Red State, coming out about Mary McCord and what she's doing. And the federally paid people or groups that are part of this plan to actively discuss how to stage a coup against our constitutional government.
And
Plus, beyond that, you have retired generals. They're not civilians. They're subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And they're here as co-conspirators in these gaming events about overthrowing our government.
yes.
This is deep stuff. So anyway, Sessions is leading the charge on that.
And do you think he's got a shot of making meaningful reform?
That remains to be seen. In terms of exposing things, yes. In terms of making any meaningful reform, you need a president to do it, armed with executive orders. Like when Obama came in, he had an army of executive people writing his executive orders during his transition, so that his first days and weeks as president, he was fundamentally transforming the government by fiat.
Yeah.
Trump didn't do that.
Oh,
Biden
no.
has done it, and then it withdrew Trump's executive orders and then imposed more of its own. Even on the first day, a lot of the censorship
Of course.
and weaponization of intelligence was first order of business stuff in Biden's first hours in office. And it came as a straight continuum from the Obama team beforehand. So, it's all the same people. And he appointed a lot of the same people. So we know this in public. Now you have that type of apparatus working with Georgetown University Law Center to overthrow all of this. So can Congress change it? No, not with the one vote majority in the House right now and Chuck Schumer running the Senate. Schumer's fine with this. And in some ways, Schumer seems to agree with this. Remember what he warned Trump in 2017, when he was talking with Rachel Maddow.
Very
He
well.
said, if Trump messes with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday from coming to come after you. And he wasn't just talking about a Republican president. He was talking about any elected officials.
So, I mean, maybe everyone should stop pretending it's a democracy. Maybe everyone, who uses that term non-ironically should have it burn on his lips. Like that's not a democracy.
Or even a constitutional republic.
Right.
You can't have it this way. Congress is funding things that they know are unconstitutional. The Justice Department is enforcing things that its lawyers know are unconstitutional. And now you have Mary McCord and her group at Georgetown Law writing the whole orchestra for the transition after November of this year to rip the Constitution to shreds.
Well, on that happy note, J. Michael Waller, big intel, how the CIA and FBI went from Cold War heroes to deep state villains. Thank you very much.
Great to be with you, and thanks for your interest in the book. There's a familiar name on the cover.
Thank you.
All right. Wow. Huh? Amazing information right there. I hope this information reaches people. A lot of key points we have to understand, including what to expect in 2024, what to look out for. The group that's trying to, yeah, thank you. It's amazing stuff, isn't it? The group that's trying to run the country into the ground. If they don't get their way, they don't maintain their power. The ones that are abusing the system, that have been abusing the system, all of that stuff right there. Where it started from, the mistakes that we made in the past that opened this Pandora's box. Now it's our job to put everything back in there, man, if we can, or to do what we can to disable it, right? So that one's worth watching again. So if you feel so inclined to go out and watch it with some other people, that would be awesome. The more people that see this, the better off we're going to be. And I thank you guys for watching it with me. And of course, coming up right now, we're going to go to another interview with Donald Trump Jr. on the post verdict. So just talking about what's going on with Trump and with what's going to happen with that verdict, and what are some of the things they've been through. It's a great interview with Donald Trump Jr. coming up here real shortly. I saw a few comments I want to just address real quick. I don't know who this alien science guy is, but if he thinks he's exposing everything, I'd like to, put it up against my expose of it. And I'm going to put this in the chat. This is a playlist that I've made debunking the controlled demolition conspiracy in 5 videos. If you watch those 5 videos and you still think it was a controlled demolition, let me know. All right. Because it explains everything. It's just the information we didn't have at the time. There was a lot of speculation behind it. When I covered Loose Change on Old School Watch Party Sundays, that turned into a debunking exercise. And basically, in that video, I talked about how, the idea that we take it too far, so no one will listen to us, was like on, likely the cause of those things. And a lot of people jump to conclusions before they had information and even an understanding of how the buildings were built, what they were built to withstand. And of course, I think the real smoking gun and all that is the fact that nobody really took into consideration the sound, the volume of sound that's taken to implode a building. Like the sound is deafening, and those sounds were not recorded anywhere. You have one dude who's a security guard saying, "I heard an explosion." Well, what kind of explosion? How loud was it? Nobody else heard these explosions, right? But if you go and you watch any building being demoed, you'll hear a deafening sounds. And I have a video there at the end that goes through many different building demolitions to let you hear what it sounds like when a building is demoed. But if you go into the each video that's there, it explains why the buildings failed, right? Why they failed. And here's the thing: they didn't have to implode the buildings to get what they wanted. That's the big takeaway from there. They will never expend additional energy. They'll never run the risk of getting caught when they can simply just let it happen, right? And then say, "Oh, we weren't coordinated enough, so now we need to centralize everything. Now we need the Patriot Act. Now we need all these other things. Now we need to sacrifice our liberty for security." See, they got everything they wanted, and the wars in Iraq, without having to actually go that far. It didn't take that far, right? It's just even if the buildings didn't implode that day, they still would have gotten what they wanted. They didn't fall that day. That they still would have gotten what they wanted. You see, they didn't have to go that far. It's a step too far. And then when people start focusing on that instead of the lead up to it, right? Instead of the what they gained from it, right? Then it's just people to shut you out. They just go, okay, that's nuts. Especially when they come up with evidence of actually exactly how the buildings failed and why. Right. And then they use that knowledge to build better buildings so that for more modernized buildings. Those buildings were not designed to take a hit from that kind of plane. But anyways, I put the playlist down in there for anybody who's on the fence about it. Check it out, see what you think, and get back to me. All right. So I had to say that because the grifters they latch on to the things that aren't real, and they take us away from the things that are real, right? And that's the problem. That's the problem with the grift. Like the guy we opened up with tonight, like the Matt Wallace from X, the Titter CEO, who's just constantly hammering people with bad information and grifty posts to get attention and things like that. But he's doing a lot better than me. I guess I'm in the wrong business. I guess I don't know what I'm doing because I keep telling the truth, and it's hard to reach people telling the truth, and that's amazing. And I say free speech platforms, but do people know when that I'm there? Do they know that they're getting the information I'm putting out? But I go through a lot of work to make sure that I cover every argument, every point of view. I've been there already, so I know what they are. Right? I was there when Loose Change was put out. Right? I was watched it early on, so I remember. I've been doing this a very long time, and that's why I've caught on to the subversion in the second veil. Right? The grift that's going on in the second veil, that's pulling us apart. It has people like Matt Wallace posting QAnon maps for people for millions of people to look at and say that this is how this represents the truth, and it doesn't. Yeah, but see, that's why I adopted the word conspiracy grift, right? There's people who go to the extreme, right? Theory versus conspiracy, one and the same idea, concept. Yeah. And I think theory and talking about conspiracies is right because conspiracies exist. And you don't have to have the word government to make a conspiracy, right? Any two people planning something as a conspiracy. So the word itself is benign, right? And they try to demonize it, right? And then what happens is they throw it all into one big batch. So you're getting mixed in with flat earthers and chemtrailers and all these other people that are way down in the abyss dwelling, right? And then that's how they mush us all together. We get mushed together. That's how they get mushed. We get mushed together with the alt-right and all their crazy conspiracies, right? That's how we get mushed together with these people who are just spouting off the same shit they've heard from other people without even investigating it or knowing anything about it. That's no different from the first veil. That's no different from someone who watches CNN. It's just a different side of the coin. That's what I'm saying. The whole thing is a lesson in learning. The second awakening is understanding the second veil. What is a conspiracy grift? What is a true conspiracy? We look at the WEF, the UN, the Agenda 2030, true conspiracy, straight out in there. Everything he was talking about tonight, true conspiracies, right? You don't have to theorize about them too much because they're there, right? We know them. But then when you go to the extreme, you jump the shark with it, then no one who might be listening is going to listen, right? It's going to be too much. And then they're going to find it you're wrong. Like Poopgate, the whole thing where all these truth-telling outlets, right? All these truth leaders, right? Jumped onto this soundbite, this elementary school soundbite, sound clip thing, right? Without saying, okay, look, we know we're just soundbiting here. We're just doing it for a laugh at someone we don't like. I get that. But when they go and they try to sell it as real, that's when we got a problem. And that's what these things lead to. That's what they lead to. And they're not going to do us any good. We're not going to win by becoming them. We never will. We have to stay above it. And we have the truth, and the truth is our ally. We stick by the truth and not vary from it. Use the trivium to vet things, to understand if you're buying into fallacies, if you're just doing hearsay, to understand the fallacies that people are using on you to gaslight you, to manufacture your consent. This is how it went. And the younger people understand these tools, the better off we're going to be in the long run. Yeah, conspiracy means people planning something detrimental. Well, not even detrimental. It doesn't have to be detrimental at all. So you can call it a criminal conspiracy. That would be more accurate. But just a conspiracy in itself, no. If you and I are conspiring to plan a vacation together, that's a conspiracy. That's definition conspiracy, right? It's just we're just conspiring to do something together. That's all. But then when you talk about criminals doing a criminal act, then you get the criminal conspiracy. So yeah, that extra word adds a lot to it. When people just that's how they mush it up, right? They mush it up. That's how they demonize talking about conspiracies at all, right? It's by mushing you in with all the shark jumpers, all the abyss stuff, all the stuff that's way down in the abyss. It's not real. It's a grift. And then people latch onto it and they think they know everything. Heisenberg, I mean, I saw Heisenberg, Dunning-Kruger effect, right? And then they just sit there. They think they got it all figured out, and any variation from that is some kind of trick. Instead of constantly vetting yourself and vetting your ideas and vetting your sources, the RICO conspiracy. Okay. Oh, my kitten's here. All right, put you right here. Like, he was on a surfboard. I bet he was. I could be surfing, man. Catch a wave. Catch a wave. Yep, that's a kitty alert. Yeah, there's a kitty alert. Okay, so that just to say that. I mean, I think that's what the channel is becoming. Like, I think I'm just going to be like the anti-conspiracy group channel. I mean, it seems to be the thing I keep going back to, but it's the most important. It's what I'm good at. It's what I've been doing for decades. I guess it's really at the root of what I'm doing is trying to undo the mind control anywhere it exists, whether it's on their side or our side, right? And that's what I've been doing since the beginning, since the Ron Paul days, since night after night, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, combating disinformation on all fronts, whether it be the establishment media or the truthers of the day. They weren't really truthers; they're just a bunch of know-it-alls with bad information. Right? Because it wasn't coming from the establishment media, they figured it was real. I mean, COINTELPRO is smart enough to figure that out. And I don't understand how people could give the establishment so much credit and not think that they're way ahead on that. I mean, they've been way ahead on everything else. Why would they know to just run people into the ground with bullshit? They do it already on establishments, in the first fail with the establishment propaganda. They already run people in the ground with bullshit. Why won't they just put out some more people and information in the second veil, in the conspiracy realm, the alternative narrative realm? Let me just put it that way, right? Which takes people off the deep end in conspiracies. It's a psychological operation, just like the other one. It's no different. That's why we have to keep our hands clean, right? And always operate in the truth. And hey, if we have to change a belief system that we've had for a long time, be up to the challenge. Don't, we're the brave ones. Oh, cool. Right on. Yeah, like I said, I hadn't heard of them before. And like like I said, I divide 9/11 into two parts, right? There's the part where it happened and everything leading up to it, and then there's the part after it happened and what everybody thinks about. I mean, literally, I fought people who thought it was a fucking hologram. I mean, I fought against the amount of garbage data they collected, and I just remember the little tiny font, how small it was, and this stuff was like dense with cut and paste and bullshit to prove to persuade people into believing it was a hologram. Like there wasn't even really planes there. That's how down the rabbit hole it gets, right? With that whole thing and where it could lead. And people were actually trying to tell me I should consider it, like in my own group. And I was like, no, it caused some of the stuff caused a big divide, that and the Sandy Hook false narrative, right? About, that kids didn't die when they did. And that it was all a big Hollywood production, right? I've gone on over that so many times. I'll probably just bore my regulars with the same, because the same stories, but it's for the new people. In that, we had the subversion was working, right? They were trying to get inside groups that were trying to truly and honestly preserve the truth and speak the truth, right? To disrupt them, to destabilize them, to pull them apart, especially ours. Ours was big. All right. Let me see. Truth or truth for sure. Trust ordinary folk, not mainstream media. Yeah. I mean, to a point, not the mainstream media, of course, but ordinary folk who isn't pressed by my definition. I decided who is pressed is going to do a video in regard to that. Cool. Awesome, dude. Do that. Conspiracy is winning reality is actually Chat GPT AI. Yeah, right. I know the most the worst spoken in AI out there. Okay, so let's go with that. Let's get to our second interview. This was really good. You guys will enjoy it as well. All right. Donald Trump Jr. on his father's conviction. I guess they met somewhere because they're not in a normal spot here. But here we go. Let's bring it up. Thanks you guys for watching that with me, and please do share it out. I mean, it's really important information. I have limited reach. Not sure why, but that's the way it is. But help me out. Share it with some people. Watch it with some people. Say, hey man, I watched this great stream tonight. And just why you can watch the first part or watch the whole damn stream with them. I don't care. But get that information out. I mean, even if you have to just go find, it's not on any of Tucker's sites, by the way. It's only behind his on his website, and you have to be a member to get it. So you guys got an exclusive interview. It's not on Rumble that I can find, and it's not on YouTube that I can find. This one is, however. But we're gonna watch it. It's a great interview. They say some really cool things in here, and it gives us a great update on what's going on. Yeah, people say that, dude, but it's just they really don't think like that. I mean, I get it. I get it because I was trying to figure it out too. Why did the building come down the way it is? Watch those videos, Thomas, and come back to me after you watch them. You're a smart guy. I think if you watch the videos, you'll figure it out. Just watch them and then we'll talk about it. All right. Come back Saturday or something and we'll talk about it. And I get it, but they didn't come down like that. You'll see. The whole thing, it was somewhat of an architecture. It was just a little bit dated, and the way that they decided to build the buildings was unique, and that caused the chain reaction. And in fact, what you're going to find in those videos, by the way, is if the planes had hit higher, they wouldn't have collapsed. So, I mean, this should clear things up. It's just like, sometimes you got to wait for an investigation to be done before you actually understand why things happen. Because I mean, a lot of people saw these buildings go down, and their only experience with that was controlled demolitions, and that's why they made the correlation. But again, the level of explosives and the sound that would have gone off after the fact to make those buildings come down would have been deafening, and it would have been something that nobody could have hid. So just check it out. Check it out. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that. Here we go, guys.
I used to think, if you asked me like even a year ago, I'd be like, well, come on, they're going to roll this guy over in a gurney, get him over the finish line. And I was like, no one would believe that. The whole premise of, their democracy, really relies on people actually still buying it. And right. I don't know that, I don't know that they care anymore. Cause like when they talk about democracy, it's a soundbite, right? It's not democracy it's not the republic they're preserving.
The opposite of what's happening.
When they talk about democracy, it is them holding on to power. That's them. Their idea of democracy is them ruling over you, with you thinking that you have some kind of say in it.
You get kidnapped, and the kidnapper has a mask on, but once he shows you his face, he's got to kill you.
Correct.
And they've shown their face.
Yeah. Again, I don't think there's anything they wouldn't do. I mean, you put out something, I think it was on Twitter yesterday, which was, sort of that extreme, like, well, if they can't get Trump this way, what's the next level? And I think they've proven that they'll do that in the past. I think we're now figuring that out. We understand it. I think the system's probably been broken for, much longer than any of us would care to admit. And for me, I saw it firsthand. And
at least 61 years it's been broken since they killed the president in an election year.
Exactly. And for me, even when we started this process, I'd say it's safe to say I was probably the number 2 target of Russia. And I was like, well, there must be something to it. I know I didn't obviously collude with Russia, but maybe I took a selfie with an agent once because I took 10,000 selfies a day, right? So but even like knowing that I was a target, I was like, I still believed because I wanted to, right? I wanted to believe that America is the greatest place in the world, and you can do it. And I'm like, it's the FBI. And again, there's some door kickers that I'm still like, hey, they're home team. I get it. They're doing. Eventually, those guys are going to have to speak up, though, right?
We're long past.
I gave the door kickers a pass for far too long, which is like, hey, they can't go against the leadership, but like when you're watching this kind of bastardization of justice, when you're watching this sort of lopsided level, when they're, they spend more time, kicking down the doors of an Amish farmer selling unpasteurized milk than actually going after people committing terror because, they're trans or, whatever it is that they are. You really lose that ability to get that pass that I really wanted them to give. But I wanted to believe that everything I grew up believing was accurate, and it's all bullshit. It's just all bullshit. So we have to fix that. That's why we fight now, to actually make it so.
But you saw this on January 6th too. I mean, I know that Joe Scarborough and the rest of the liars presented those people as like insurrectionists and dangerous. They were actually the most pure-hearted and the
100%.
most naive about I mean, they were literally walking with pocket constitutions saying, no, you can't do this. They believed
Yeah.
in the system much more than the people who put them in prison who don't believe in it at all.
Without question. And you saw that. I mean, the narrative was pushed so much. The clips that they used were designed to create something that didn't actually happen. I mean, it's so sick. I always say, it was the first unarmed insurrection in the history of insurrections. I mean,
Yes.
it's never happened before, but arguably, I'd say probably the most heavily armed populace if they wanted to have been, right?
Of course.
But of course it wasn't an insurrection. It didn't matter. And they just wanted to run out the clock.
Like they could hardly believe this was happening. And I think you're describing the same thing. Like you really believed it in our institutions and our norms and democracy.
I did. And it took, again, I mean, literally threats of, you're going to jail for treason, a crime punishable by death. That's like not a great swing thought when you're going through it. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute. Like,
if you're the father of 5 kids, that's
I'm
not.
Like, And yet I still, at the beginning of it, I was like, and then it just, your eyes start to open and you see the games and you see the people that are on your side and you see the, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, right? They get on TV and they're on, Fox or something like that. And they're like, well, we must subpoena these people and we must get to the bottom of this. I'm like, well, you're like the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Like you have the authority to do that. But you're talking about doing the thing that you have the authority to do, but you're unwilling to actually exercise that power. So that was what disgusted me most about like the Republicans, right? You're telling your base, the people who are watching, like you're fighting, but you know damn well that you're not actually fighting, right? And we see that so much. That's the difference between. It's the difference between the Democrats. I mean, they've shown, hey, they'll put their opposition in jail, they'll smother them, they'll silence them. There's nothing they won't do to preserve power. We'll write a strongly worded memo and do nothing to follow up. And I think as long as you have that sort of imbalance in the response, nothing changes. Because the Democrats, they'll take their win, they'll run to the bank, they'll laugh their ass off along the way, and nothing changes until we actually start fighting back.
I think a lot of people yesterday, when that verdict came down, I'm among them. My first reaction was, "Wow, they'll actually hurt us. Like they would execute us, me. I'll just say, speak for myself, and there would be an MSNBC panel of former federal prosecutors telling their audience that I deserved it, and they'd be laughing. The Lincoln Project would send out a congratulatory tweet, and I was like, wow, there's sort of a lack of humanity. There's a coldness. There's an evil under all of this that I think I underestimate.
I think we all did. And by the way, I think many still do. Again, it's hard to believe that you could live through these last 8 years or whatever, 10 years and not think that. I mean, look at, that this is even, within 10 points in terms of an election. Like I can't name literally a single metric, a single one, geopolitical, economic, or otherwise, like where we're better off now. And yet they'll outraise us. They'll do this. The media still pushes it as though, Bidenomics is doing wonderfully for you. Like, I get it. I'm the son of a billionaire. If I'm pissed off at the grocery store, like, I'm not like one of these woke guys on one of these channels where it's like, my 3-month-old baby was talking about nuclear proliferation on the Korean Peninsula, and she was crying. She was scared. It's like, I get it. Like, I understand where I'm come from. I'm totally comfortable with that. I've been blessed. But like, if I'm sitting there with sticker shock, like, what's the country feeling? If I see what's going on in my interest rates on my mortgage, like, man.
I mean, even the people with all the money understand how bad it is. Of course they do. They do, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, 30 years or more. 30 years or more. I mean, honestly, they then in the last interview, they kind of traced it back to the 40s, which is to me made sense because you had the war, right? But you also had the Federal Reserve Act firmly in place at that point. Like it had gone through all its growth, right? It takes a little while to spin up things like that, but it was spun up by then. And I always felt like it came down to the Federal Reserve Act. It may have just been my, the influence of G. Edward Griffith and others on me. But, I in my research, I felt like that's where this kind of like modern day takeover happened, even though there was other attempts prior to that. I mean, so I didn't think that they really carried over too much, but that getting their hooks into the currency and the controlling the economy in the way that they were able to with that act, open the door for them just to start shoveling people in and start to try different aspects of demoralizing and destabilizing our society. So yeah, that opened the door. I think really opened the door to corruption. So I mean, shoot, 30 years it's been the acceleration, I think, in 30 years, so the revert, yeah, is the acceleration in the last 30 years. And then if you go back to the the origins of it, where did the first inklings of it start? I think you go back to like around the 30s, 40s, in that area. I would say, the Federal Reserve Act is probably one of the marked beginnings of this attempt, right? This isn't the first one. If you go into the history books, there were others beforehand and other presidents that stood up to it and stopped it, right? Yeah, there's the Jekyll Island, 1920s, right? The Georgia, they did that initial meeting, they put that thing together, and they got it passed into law. And then as they spun it up, things started getting worse and worse because why? They controlled all the money, right? They started making a lot of money then. Yep. So here we go.
How much longer can we do this? Then you talk about wars and trillions of dollars of spending, and then the Republicans are telling us that the Ukraine is the number one most important issue for Republicans across our country. I've heard that from Mitch McConnell dozens of times. It's just not, right? I've spoken in front of more Republicans in the last year than Mitch McConnell has in his entire lifetime. And I think I've surveyed, probably I do it live, like just at a speech, 1,000 people here, 500 people here, 5,000 people there. It's been a top 10 issue at about 65,000 people for 3 people. One of them was a DC sort of beltway guy.
Yeah.
He felt very strongly about it. Probably he was profiteering off of it. One of them misunderstood the question, so he thought it was a double negative. So it was not, in fact, a top 10 issue for him. Is it top 3 or top 10? And one of them, it was top 10, but not top 3. And I said, sir, and I'll ask him. I don't care. I want to hear it out. Like, I'm from Kiev, Ukraine. I was like, I'm going to give you a pass. So I'm going to effectively say, out of about 65,000 people surveyed in the last, let's call it 2 years, 18 months, whatever it is since the war started, a little more, I guess. Exactly. Basically 0 people have been in favor of this, but the leader of the Senate will tell us it's the number one issue for Republicans across the country. It's just not so.
How can that?
So I was just thinking to myself, man, and you need to tell your dad how to
one
tan.
issue for Republicans across the country. It's just not so.
How can that?
So yeah, he needs to show his dad how to tan. It's like, no, he's got a nice tan. But but I was thinking, did you guys ever hear that documentary? Hey, Mimsy, look, it's Mimsy. Still recovering from hospital. Oh, we love you too. We're thinking about you. We want you to get well soon, okay? We're so happy that you're here. Everybody say hi to Mimsy. Wish her well. Awesome to see you. I'm happy that you're okay and on the mend. You're getting well every day. You're getting more well. But do you guys remember the documentary Ukraine on Fire? Does anybody did you guys ever see that? I'm thinking about doing that this Sunday for old school Watch Party Sundays. It's worth a look and do some analysis on. I haven't vetted it. I mean, geopolitics is, and those kind of things that, I know about it. It's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is mind control and subversion and things like that that's going on. It's things that are happening to us, the generational solutions, the generational war against us, things of that nature. That's my, and of course, debunking the grifts, right? That's my wheelhouse. Okay, thanks. Let me know when I'm back. Am I back yet? Okay, am I back? I think I'm back. All right. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so we know what happened there, guys, right? Not yet? I'm back. Am I back? I'm back. All right. Okay. All right, so I'm back. So, okay, so somehow YouTube thinks they own Tucker Carlson. I guess he has this up on his YouTube page or something. I let it run too long. So what I'll do now is do this. Okay, so we had to jump to Rumble, ladies and gentlemen. So I probably had to cut out some of that interview. However, the entire interview is over on Rumble and on X. The link is in the description below, as well as pinned in the chat. You can follow us to listen to the rest of your interview by following those links, right? I recommend going over to Rumble, make sure where you're there, you follow me and give it a thumbs up to fight the system, because that's what we're doing, right? We're fighting the censorship system. The show will go on. It will go on. So everybody here has a Rumble account, right? And I know Evelyn has an X account, so she can see us one way or another. And so we're going to have to make that jump, guys. We're going to have to make the jump. Mimsy, you got it. You're all set over there on Rumble. I know you are. Okay. Unfortunately, yeah. Well, I'll rewind it a little bit. I don't know when it cut out.
Favor of this, but the leader of the Senate passed. So I'm
I let it run a little too long without commenting on it. That's all it was, really. So, anyways, I'm not sure where it cut off. So probably it was a blank spot, and then you just jumped to this explanation. All right. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching it on YouTube. Please leave me a like when you jump off and go over to Rumble. I appreciate it. But right now, we're going to get back to it, and we're going to head over. Guys, everybody that came out on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me on YouTube. Well, now let's go to Rumble. Let's finish this interview up. Threat, you got a Rumble account over there? I think I've seen you over there before, right? All right, let's do this.
Man, everyone's tensed up for a Rumble.